All right, so get this. We're diving into a story today. It's wild rumors and serious allegations all in one. We're talking about Sean Diddy Combs.
Diddy,
Yeah,
of course.
his LA mansion. And whispers about a secret tunnel. And get this,
Okay.
this alleged tunnel leads to the Playboy Mansion.
Now, you can't really talk about Diddy without talking about all that he's done. The music, his businesses.
Right.
He's definitely a household name.
Yeah.
And I guess with that level of fame,
Yeah.
you tend to attract some pretty wild stories.
Well, for sure. But in this case, these stories are happening at the same time as some real legal troubles for Diddy. He was arrested back in September, right?
Yeah, that's right. He's facing some really serious charges,
Mm-hmm.
including sex trafficking and racketeering. And, as you can imagine, those allegations have caused people to really start digging into his life,
Yeah,
including looking at his properties.
that makes sense. Scandal and real estate always seem to go hand in hand. Which brings us back to that rumor that spread like wildfire about the supposed secret tunnel connecting Diddy's place to the Playboy Mansion. I have to admit, my first thought was, is this real life?
It definitely sounds like something out of a movie or TV show.
Right.
But
Yeah.
here's where things get interesting. Despite these crazy rumors spreading online, especially on X,
Yeah.
formerly Twitter, there's absolutely no evidence to support any of it.
Really? So there's no grainy security footage of Diddy using this tunnel?
Nope. We're talking zero mentions in any credible news sources, no statements from law enforcement, nothing at all to make us think this tunnel actually exists.
Wow. And I bet you guys would know. You've been digging into this, right?
We did. We really did our research. We even contacted the Department of Justice to see if they could confirm anything, but we haven't heard back yet. So
Yeah.
until we get confirmation, all signs are pointing to this just being a case of the internet making up stories.
Okay, so the Playboy Mansion tunnel might be fake news, but this mansion, Diddy's mansion, does have a real underground tunnel.
Right.
Tell me it's at least as cool as a secret passage to a celebrity playground.
Well, I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
It's definitely pretty luxurious. This tunnel connects the main house's swimming pool to a private grotto.
Okay, wait, hold up. So you're saying there's a tunnel where you can swim from the house to a private grotto?
Yeah.
Okay, I take it back. That's pretty cool. And this isn't some new information either, is it? I feel like I've heard this before.
You're right. It's not new. It was actually in the LA Times a while back, like 2014, when Diddy bought the house. So yeah, it's publicly known.
So not a secret, but definitely a nice perk of owning that house. All right, so we figured out that the Playboy Mansion tunnel isn't real. But this mansion has its own interesting stuff going on. But before we get too distracted by secret swimming adventures, let's talk about the mansion itself. If it's not a portal to the Playboy Mansion, what's the deal with this place?
Well, to call it a house might not be doing it justice. It's more like a full-blown estate.
An estate. Okay, now I'm imagining huge grounds, fountains, maybe one of those maze gardens. What are we talking about here?
You're not far off. Think European-style villa, with a cobblestone driveway leading up to the main house. But it's not just what it looks like from the outside. This place has everything. Large living room, formal dining room, a wine cellar. We're just scratching the surface here.
All right, so far this is very on brand for Diddy, but I have to ask, with all the serious allegations against him, does this level of luxury play into everything that's going on?
It's impossible to ignore the fact that this lavish lifestyle is happening at the same time as this really serious legal case. And some things from the property listings stick out when you think about the charges against him. For example, there's a 35-person theater on the property.
A 35-person theater. Wow. Okay, now I am picturing some epic movie nights, but maybe not the type of parties that got Diddy in trouble.
Yeah, you get it.
And then there's that lagoon-style pool that connects to the grotto. Those things are luxurious no matter what. But it hits differently when you remember what Diddy's accused of.
Yeah, it does make you think.
It's like we're watching those shows about rich and famous people, but in real time. So we've got a fake tunnel, a real underwater escape route, and a mansion that's basically a character in all of this.
Exactly. And it gets even more interesting. Diddy actually tried to sell this house recently.
He did? Really? I had no idea. Tell me everything. Did someone actually buy it?
Well, that's where things get even more complicated. We'll get into all of that after a quick break. Stay with us.
So before the break, we were talking about Diddy trying to sell that LA mansion.
Right.
Did it work out? Did he find a buyer?
As far as we can tell, it hasn't been sold yet. Yeah. It was listed for $61 million, but I guess nobody was willing to pay that.
$61 million. I can't even imagine having that kind of money, let alone spending it all on a house.
Right.
Although that underground grotto is pretty tempting.
Yeah.
But seriously, the fact that it hasn't sold, What does that tell us?
Well, it could just be the market. Selling ultra-luxury real estate is tough. Or maybe people aren't so interested in buying a place with so much legal drama surrounding it.
I get it. Who wants to move into a house that's at the center of a huge investigation?
Yeah.
But speaking of those allegations, we've been talking about this LA mansion, but weren't there other properties involved in those raids back in March 2024?
Yes.
I vaguely remember hearing something about a property in Miami.
Yeah, remembering correctly. This investigation wasn't just focused on LA. There were raids happening in both Los Angeles and Miami at the same time.
Okay, so tell me, was this Miami place just as over the top as the LA one?
Well, the details about that property are kind of hard to come by. We're not exactly sure what it's like.
Okay.
But knowing how Diddy lives his life, it was probably another really expensive property.
That makes sense. But let's get back to those allegations for a minute. It seems like a big jump to go from having big parties to these accusations about sex trafficking and racketeering. I mean, what was going on at these parties that led to these charges?
It's important to remember this investigation is still in progress, and the allegations against Diddy are incredibly serious. This is complex stuff.
Right.
It'll be up to the legal system to decide what really happened.
Of course. And it's important to remember that there are real people involved in all of this, and their lives are affected by what happens to Diddy.
Absolutely. And that's why we can't just speculate. We need to let the justice system do its thing. We need to stick to reporting the facts that we know.
For sure. And speaking of reporting facts, this whole tunnel thing that went viral, that's a perfect example of how fast misinformation can spread online, especially when you're talking about someone as famous as Diddy.
It's a great point. Things online can get out of hand so quickly. People love to spread sensational stories.
Yeah.
Especially when there's no critical thinking involved.
Yeah.
It's like a game of telephone, but with really serious consequences.
Yeah. And the more shocking the story, the quicker people seem to believe it.
Right. Add in something about a secret tunnel. And throw in a mention of the Playboy Mansion. You've got a recipe for something that's going to go viral, even if it's completely made up.
It's true. So what you're saying is we should be careful about what we believe online.
Exactly. Especially if it seems too crazy to be true.
Makes sense.
Do your research. Find good sources.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, especially when it comes to stories about celebrities.
Great advice. But this also makes me think about how much we all love a good story, even if it's not true. People love conspiracy theories,
Right.
especially when those theories involve celebrities and wealth and secrets.
Of course.
It's like we love to peek behind the curtain and see how the other half lives. And when you add in some mystery and intrigue, it's hard to resist.
That's true.
So, getting back to Diddy's mansion, you mentioned earlier that he tried to sell it.
Yeah.
What happened there? Did he have any offers?
Well, selling a place like that takes time, even if you're famous. And I think that $61 million asking price might have scared some people away. Or maybe they just weren't interested once all this other stuff came out.
I see what you're saying. But the fact that he put it up for sale in the middle of this investigation, it makes you wonder what he's thinking.
It is interesting timing.
Right.
I think it goes back to this idea that we've been talking about, this intersection of fame, wealth, and public image.
Break that down for me. What does this mansion say about Diddy's public image?
Well, think about it. Diddy's lifestyle, especially his houses and stuff, that plays a big role in how we all see him. We see these huge, expensive properties, and it creates an idea of who he is. And it's hard to separate that image from the things he's accused of doing.
So even though the mansion itself has nothing to do with the allegations,
Right.
it's still a part of his story because it represents his wealth and success.
Exactly. Material possessions can take on a life of their own, especially in the public eye.
It's like that saying, you are what you own, or something like that.
Something like that.
Oh,
And social media doesn't help.
definitely not.
We're constantly shown these perfect versions of people's lives. And it's easy to get caught up in all that.
So we should be careful about how much we let those things influence what we think of people. Especially when someone is facing serious allegations like Diddy is, it's easy to jump to conclusions.
Definitely.
But the truth is always more complicated.
It is. There are always different sides to every story. We can't just focus on the superficial stuff.
Okay, so where does this leave us? We have this huge estate,
Yeah.
this tunnel rumor that turned out to be fake, these serious allegations against Diddy,
Right.
and a lot of questions about how all of this affects the way the public sees him. What's next?
Well, those are the big questions, and there aren't any easy answers. But I think by even asking those questions and digging deeper into this story, we become more aware of how information is presented to us.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually do that? How do we figure out what's true?
It takes effort.
Mm.
We need to be willing to question what we believe. We need to look for reliable sources of information.
And how do we know what to trust?
That's the hard part.
Right.
But we'll talk more about all of that right after this. We'll be right back.
It can be really tough.
Yeah.
Especially with so much information out there. How do we know what to trust?
Right. It's like you said,
Yeah.
trying to find a needle in a haystack. But that's what we're trying to do here. Give you the tools to cut through all the noise.
Exactly. We're giving you your deep dive toolkit. And we've definitely been putting it to use today.
We have.
We started with this rumor about a secret tunnel. And now look at us.
It's wild. You wouldn't think one little detail could lead to all this.
I know. It shows you that things are rarely just black and white.
Right.
There's always more to this story.
Exactly.
So, in Diddy's case, we have, let me see, a huge estate, a legal battle, and a lot of questions about how this is all playing out in the public eye.
Yeah. It's a lot to unpack.
It is. So, what does it all mean?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And I don't know if there's one right answer, but I think by asking that question and looking at all the different angles, we can at least be more aware of what we're reading and seeing.
So, basically, we should be careful about what we believe, especially when it comes to stuff we see online.
Exactly.
Well said. Well, I think that about wraps things up for us today.
I think so.
We covered a lot.
We did.
It's amazing how one rumor about Diddy and a tunnel to the Playboy Mansion turned into a conversation about misinformation and social media.
I know. It's all connected, though.
Right. I guess so. It's like you were saying, we live in a world where perception is everything.
Yeah. Especially for people like Diddy.
So we have to remember there's always more to this story than what we see on the surface.
100%.
You never really know what's going on behind closed doors.
You don't.
And sometimes the truth is even wilder than the rumors.
Sometimes.
Well, on that note, we'll leave you with this. We may have debunked the Playboy Mansion tunnel, but we learned a lot about online rumors, celebrity, and even real estate.
We did.
This has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.